Tonight it's my pleasure to introduce Kaitlyn Kite, who is going to talk about birding in the technology age. Kaitlyn's not a stranger to us. He's sitting back there. Kaitlyn's not a stranger. She's a two-time recipient of our one of our ornithological research grants, and she gave a program on the research that she did a few years ago. She gave a program to the club, and I know it was a wonderful program. She's an excellent speaker. Kaitlyn received her undergraduate degree from Haverford College in Pennsylvania, and she got her master's degree here at William & Mary, and she's now in her last year of her doctorate here at William & Mary. Kaitlyn told me that she, in addition to being interested in birds and watching birds and researching birds, that she is also very interested in writing, and she's an excellent writer. She has been published numerous times in Birdwatcher's Digest, and these were two of the month's editions that she has articles in. She has articles in others. I think she's having an article coming out in next month, aren't you? Mm-hmm. And the topic that she's going to talk about tonight, she's written an article, and they're going to publish that sometime next year. So without further ado, will you please help me welcome Kaitlyn to speak to us tonight.
Sorry to lurk in the back. I wanted to start the video camera, not because I love technology that much, but because Ruth Beck and Janet Curtis both wanted to be here tonight, but they couldn't, and so I thought I would make them a digital copy so they could see what I have to say later on. Thank you very much for that introduction. So obviously tonight I'm talking about birding with batteries, and just to give you a little idea of what I'm going to talk about exactly. I'm going to start off with a little introduction to let you know how it is that I got interested in this topic and why I thought it would be interesting to other people and relevant right now. What I did to go about finding out about technology and technology use among birders, what I found in terms of what they use and how people feel about it, and then a little discussion about why is this important for us right now, why is it important for you as birders, but also for other people. So the pivotal moment in all of this occurred actually 3 years ago now, and I was at the VSO meeting in the breaks, and they had as their guest speaker Don Kuzma. And a lot of you are probably familiar with Don because he wrote this wonderful book called The Singing Right for Birds. And for anyone who has not read it, basically it's a summary for lay people of his decades-long research of birdsong. And what Don basically does is he goes out with his equipment and he sits and just listens to birds. And there are some times when he will listen to one bird for just hours on end. And he talked about this at the conference, and you can see he has a slide up there visualizing birdsong. And he played us clips, and I was just sitting there amazed because the clarity was incredible, and you could slow it down and listen to it, or you could speed it up, and you could see how different unrelated birds sounded the same sometimes, and just all sorts of interesting things that you could do with this stuff. And I thought, I would love to do this. And this was at the end of my master's project, and I was about to start my doctoral project. And I thought, well, you know, I don't have the money to buy this equipment, but my advisor does. So I came up with a doctoral program that would allow me to study this. So my advisor kindly said yes, and I bought a recorder and a shotgun mic, and you can see me in the middle there, standing out at a golf course recording a male bluebird that is singing. And so I used the same technology that Don used, and I looked at these bird songs. And just as he predicted, I found that when you listen to birds in this very personal way, you know, directly from them right into your earphones, it's amazing how very personal it is and how different it is. And you really come to see these birds in a completely different way. It's actually very exciting. You can start to tell one individual from others of the same species. You can start to hear little subtle things that related species do, and you say, well, you know, that robin really does sound like that wood thrush in certain aspects. And it's just really incredible. And so, you know, one of the other things that Don said was this equipment, it costs maybe $1,000 depending on what you buy. And, you know, the average person can totally go out and buy that. Well, me being an average grad student, I couldn't. But as I was doing this, I thought, well, $1,000 is not that different from what some folks might pay for a really nice pair of binoculars or a great scope or any other sort of birding equipment. So I wondered, as I was doing this, whether people might actually go out and buy this stuff and get to have these sorts of experiences that I was having. And then once I had that thought, it occurred to me that maybe there were other pieces of equipment that they were going out and purchasing that would allow them to have that same sort of up-close and personal, unique experience while they're out birding. And so that's why I came up with the idea of finding out what these devices might be. And as soon as I had that idea, I kind of had this recollection of these many bird meetings that I've been to over the years. And there are always these people at every bird meeting I go to that have the same conversation about the purity of birding. And some people are very adamant about going out just with binoculars, and that's it. Whatever you see is what you see. You do it of your own merit. Whatever your senses tell you, that's what you found. And those are the people who always consider themselves purists. And then there are the bad guys, according to the purists, who go out with other people. They go out with technology and they start playing bird songs and they start pitching around and getting species to come in, and they do all sorts of nasty things that everyone else says is cheating. And so I was wondering, is there really such a thing as pure versus dirty birding? And surely if there is, people who use technology might be considered like athletes that use steroids. I mean, technology must be a really bad thing to these people. So I thought I could investigate both of these things all at once by seeing first, what are people using out there, and how do people feel about using stuff at all. So I came up with a survey, which many of you are probably familiar with since I did send it out to some of you. And I came up with some demographic data that I thought might influence people's responses. And then I had my two main questions. So first of all, demographically, I wanted to know your name, your age, how long you've been birding, and how often you go birding. Because I thought that the amount of experience that you've had with birds and the length of time you've been in the birding world might have an impact on how you view technology. And then in terms of my actual interests in terms of this research, what devices do you use and how often do you use them? Because I thought maybe circumstantially you might choose to use different things. And also, what are your opinions about the use of technology? Specifically, I encourage people to tell me whether they thought that it added to their experience in nature or detracted, if it got in the way of their experiences with other people and with other birds, and just in general, what was their philosophy of birding. So at the time that I developed all this, I was living in North Carolina, and I was part of the North Carolina listserv. But I'm an Ohio native, and so I was part of the Ohio listserv, and of course I'm a Virginia resident. So I was able to send out these surveys to all states of all those listservs. So from Ohio all the way down to South Carolina, I got birders to respond. And I also targeted a bunch of you guys, as many emails as I could get from the little letters that I was getting in the email. So many of you were actually part of these results. And I thank you all for that. I do admit that because I was doing all this over email, there's a slightly biased sample because these are people who use email and who are willing to be on a listserv and answer an email. But these days, I think kind of everyone is on email, so hopefully it shouldn't bias my results too much.
Except you.
Except me, purists. But I did get purists who respond to emails, so go ahead. So the demographics, what I found, actually none of these things really seem to influence. I was kind of surprised. I thought, maybe judging from my grandparents, the older you get, the less likely you are to use technology. But that wasn't really, there were no trends. I did, however, think that some of these demographics might offer a nice slice of the American birding scene. So I found that people who were middle-aged or older tended to make up the bulk of birders. But if you look at the experience distribution, it's not the same as age distribution. So there are a lot of older people who have just started birding and some younger people who've been doing it all their lives. And I thought that was actually really interesting, how it's kind of changing in terms of how people get into this and how long they do it. I also found that there were more men than females who responded, but again, all of this could just be who was willing to sit down at the computer and type out. Maybe guys procrastinate more, so they were at work responding instead of work. Right? I'm just kidding.